Prop 19 Goes Up in Smoke by Mark Thornton, an audio Mises Daily narrated by the author. Proposition 19 in California would have legalized marijuana, but it fell short. Victory seemed almost a foregone conclusion for many. After all, it is California. For millions, both in California and across the country, news of Prop 19's failure came as a major disappointment. However, it should be considered a great victory for such a radical measure to get 46% of the vote in open defiance of federal law, especially considering the intense opposition. Plans are already in the works to put the initiative back on the ballot for the 2012 election, which is expected to have a higher turnout from young people. But in order for the ballot initiative to succeed, we must first understand why it failed. The opposition. In order to understand the depth and strength of the opposition, it is necessary to understand what Prop 19 is really about. This legislation would be in open opposition to federal law as well as to a United Nations treaty that supports the drug war. It would be a law passed by the people, not the legislature. Most importantly, it would demonstrate that in the absence of marijuana prohibition, society can survive and thrive. This example would give other states the idea that they could also effectively repeal marijuana prohibition. It might even create a national effort to repeal marijuana prohibition. It might even give people the idea to repeal other silly and harmful federal laws. This would open a can of worms for federal authority and bring back the idea of a people's nullification. So as you can see, this was a critical victory for federal authority. It is not just that some potheads forgot to register to vote. Lots of money was spent. Lots of lies were told. This was the equivalent of a gold line stand for federal authority. Bruce Yandel created the bootleggers and Baptists model of politics to describe how special interest groups who normally oppose each other work for a common goal. With alcohol prohibition, Baptist preachers teamed up with bootleggers and moonshiners to make and keep alcohol illegal. Today we see the shared interest of environmental groups and established oil companies who both want drilling restricted. Those opposing Prop 19 included everyone from marijuana dealers to megachurch preachers, all the powerful politicians, candidates, pot smokers, and even the California Beer and Beverage Distributors Association joined the team. The ancient proverb, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend," perfectly describes the relationship of these seemingly unlikely bedfellows. Politicians. Politicians lined up solidly against Prop 19, as you would expect. Gubernatorial candidates Jerry Brown and Meg Whitman opposed it. U.S. Senate candidates Barbara Boxer, Carla Fiorina opposed it. California Senator Dianne Feinstein opposed it. California Representative and Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi opposed it. Both candidates for Attorney General opposed it. In an attempt to dishearten supporters of Prop 19, U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder issued a statement that he would vigorously enforce federal law in California even if Prop 19 passed. In a similar vein, Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger signed a bill making possession of small amounts of marijuana a minor violation punishable by a maximum fine of $100. This was a last-ditch effort to undermine support for Prop 19 by giving the impression that marijuana was a de facto legal drug. Even Mexican President Felipe Calderon and Colombia's Juan Manuel Santos vocally opposed Prop 19. Not surprisingly, given that Mexico and Colombia receive a great deal of money from the U.S. government to fight the war on drugs, and both countries generate substantial income from the sale of illegal drugs. Legal pot in California would have been a big blow to both marijuana and cocaine sales from south of the border. Bootleggers. There is good evidence that those who currently grow and sell illegal marijuana oppose Prop 19. The Emerald Triangle, consisting of Humboldt, Mendocino, and Trinity counties, is the major marijuana growing region in Northern California. According to Mother Jones magazine, those three counties voted to defeat Prop 19. There's a large movement up there of people who realize that their self-interest lies in keeping marijuana illegal, said Hank Sims, the editor of the North Coast Journal, based in the Humboldt town of Eureka. Growers in the Emerald Triangle's rugged hills and foggy redwood groves are shielded from the snooping eyes of the DEA, but that advantage would become a handicap if pot could be openly cultivated in California's warm, flat, agribusiness-dominated Central Valleys. North Coast ganja growers would have to get government-sponsored price controls in the form of bust, Sims explained. So I think a lot of people kind of cynically voted their pocketbook and voted to keep it illegal. There was even a group called Stoners Against Legalization, but it turns out that it was headed up by a drug law attorney who would have lost a great deal of her business had Prop 19 passed. Likewise, medical marijuana shops have come out against Prop 19 on the ludicrous notion that legalization would reduce patient access to marijuana. The Baptist. Segueing from bootleggers to Baptists, we find this headline in the East Bay Express. Stoners Against Legalization team up with ex-crackhead priest. Of course, the priest was joined by fundamentalist Christians as well. East Bay Express reports, backed by the California Beer and Beverage Distributors, No on 19 Group Public Safety First employed the powerful Christian fundamentalist organization Vision to America. The anti-gay rights group asked its hundreds of thousands of believers nationwide to help us get out the word about our campaign to defeat legalized recreational marijuana in schools. The California Beer and Beverage Distributors, who would be hurt by lower marijuana prices, teamed up with church-based Vision to America, talk about bootleggers and Baptists in action, to raise money, run advertisements, and mislead the public debate. They claimed that Prop 19 would lead to allowing truck drivers, nurses, and students to get high before driving, nursing, or going to school. The Chamber of Commerce also aired some blatantly misleading advertisements. The truth, of course, is that students, nurses, and truck drivers can be prevented from getting high before showing up, just as they are prevented from getting drunk. The truth is that businesses can prevent customers and employees from smoking pot on their property, and insurance companies would not go along with businesses that allow employees to get high and operate heavy machineries or fly planes. In fact, marijuana is safer than alcohol and is probably only the 10th most problematic recreational drug. Given the powerful forces opposing Prop 19, along with their lies and trickery, the forces of liberty and prosperity should not be disheartened by this initial defeat. We now have a copy of their playbook. Politicians, pot growers, and medical marijuana dealers oppose to legalization, while Christian organizations, beer distributors, and drug lawyers spread lies to protect their self-interest. The Ludwig von Mises Institute hopes you have enjoyed this audio Mises Daily. For a world of free market literature, media, and discussion, visit Mises.org.